Hi there guys, welcome to Seasick Pirate Studios. My name is Curtis and in today's episode we'll be painting some Vanari Auralan Wardens for Lumineth Realm-Lords. The scheme we're going to be painting today is a Zaitrec lambent mystic scheme. So lots of pink, lots of purple, lots of gold as well. But here's a list of paints you'll need, so grab your brushes and let's get started. Here we have our Vanari Auralan Warden. I've undercoated this model with Corax White spray from Citadel. Seeing as Lumineth Realm-Lords are elves of light and magic, white is a great base colour to start with. So to start, we're going to paint the robes. Now the first colour we're going to be using is Apothecary White, which is contrast paint by Citadel. So give this a good shake. You want to get yourself a brush that can hold a lot of paint, so I'm using a Army Painter Regiment brush. So this gives me good coverage and it also holds a decent amount of paint. So we're just going to load our brush up. And what we're going to be doing is just painting this all over the robes. Now with contrast paints, you want to watch for pooling and make sure you don't let the paint dry all streaky. Now that our contrast paint has dried, we're going to apply a layer of Ulthuan Grey to all the raised areas on the robes. This step may take 2 to 3 watered down coats to achieve a nice solid finish. So what we want to do, just get a touch of water, just water this paint down a little bit, there we go. Make sure we've got some on the brush. So what you want to do is just apply this all over the flat areas of the robes. But just leave a little bit of a gap around the edge so that shade is still showing. Now another tip here is before you start this step, just make sure your brush that you're using and your water are both clean, because you don't want to contaminate this colour, otherwise it will be difficult to fix. With the Ulthuan Grey now dried, our robes are looking crisp and clean. So for the next step we're going to be focusing on the armour plates, the shield and all the other gold parts on the model. So for this step we're going to be doing it in 3 different parts. We're going to be using Retributor Armour for a base. We're then going to shade it with Reikland Feshshade Gloss. And then we're going to be giving it a layer of Liberator Gold just to finish it off. So let's get some Retributor Armour onto our palette. Just water that down a little bit. And then what we're looking to do is just pick out those armour panels and then just apply the gold. Now we're going to need 2 thin coats of gold just to get decent coverage and cover up all that white. So now the gold is dried, we're going to wash the armour and shield with Reikland Feshshade Gloss. So the reason we're using gloss is so we don't lose any shine on the gold. And we're just going to apply this all over our gold areas. Now again, just be careful because you don't want to get any of this on that lovely crisp white that we've painted. Now that our wash is dried, for the last step on the gold, we're going to be applying a layer of Liberator Gold. So when applying this, you want a fine detail brush, and what you want to do is just paint all of those raised areas and the flat areas of the armour. And you want to leave just around the edges where the wash is sitting, just to keep that definition. So after a layer of Liberator Gold, our armour is complete. Next, we're going to be painting the silver parts of the model, like the chainmail and the spear blade and the shield icon. Like the armour, we're going to be doing this in 3 steps. Step 1, we're going to base the areas with Ironbreaker. Step 2, we're going to wash the Ironbreaker with Nuln Oil Gloss. And step 3, to finish off these areas, we're going to highlight them with Stromhost Silver. So, we've got some Ironbreaker on our palette. Just add a touch of water to water that down. And then what we're going to do is just paint that over the areas we want to be silver. Now again, just be careful not to touch any of that crisp white. So now the silver is dry, our next step is using Nuln Oil Gloss just to wash over all of those areas. So we're going to get some onto our brush here and just cover those silver areas like that. And we also want to do it on the shield as well. Get in between all those links on the chainmail. And we're also going to do it on the blade as well. Now that the Nuln Oil wash has dried all over the silver areas, what we're going to be doing is completing them with Stromhost Silver. So we're going to get some Stromhost Silver onto our brush. I'm using a Windsor and Newton Series 7 0 size brush for this, so you'll need a fine detail just to give you some control. Now what you want to do is just paint a small V at the bottom of every scale of the chainmail. And for our parts in the middle, like the crest on the armour, you just want to follow those lines around, just give it a little highlight. Same with the shield and the icon on the shield. What we're going to do is just go around the outside of the icon. Just like that. After highlighting all the metal areas, the armour is now complete. Next, we're going to focus on all the parts that need to be brown, like the spear shaft, the scabbard on the back, and the back of the shield. For this, we're going to base the areas with Doombull Brown. We're then going to apply a wash of Agrax Earthshade, and then we're going to finish off these areas with a highlight of Skrag Brown. So, we've got some Doombull Brown on our palette. Just want to water that down a touch. Let's get some on your brush. And then we just want to paint the areas we want to be brown. So you will need 2 thin coats of this colour just to cover up that undercoat. But what I do like about Doombull Brown is that it's quite a natural brown and it doesn't look too cartoony. After 2 thin layers of Doombull Brown, we're now ready to apply Agrax Earthshade to all of the brown areas. So we're just going to load some up on our brush and we're just going to paint this all over the Doombull Brown. After a wash of Agrax Earthshade, the definition on the brown areas is standing out nicely. All we need to do now is highlight these areas with Skrag Brown. You'll need your fine detail brush for this part, and you don't want to overload your brush because you want control of where the paint goes. So we're just going to get a tiny bit of Skrag Brown onto our brush. Just going to twist it there to get a nice point. And now what you want to do on the back of the scabbard here is just paint those lines like that. So on the back of the shield, to highlight all of those wooden planks, we're going to take our small dry brush. We're going to dip it into our Skrag Brown. We're going to scrub it off with a piece of kitchen towel. And then we're just going to dry brush all of these wooden planks on the back of the shield. Now this picks them out really nicely and it will leave you with a good finish as well. There we are. So we're also going to be using the same method on the spear shaft. We're just going to load up our dry brush, scrub all that Skrag Brown off, and then we're just going to be dragging this down at an angle. Now you need to be really careful here because you don't want to snap your spears. Just dry brush that down, just to take the edge off that wash and give the spear a more realistic look. So now all the brown areas are complete, we can pop our shield to one side because that's now done. We're going to be focusing on the black areas, so like the boots, the gloves and the sword grip. So we're going to be giving them a base of Aboddon Black. We're then going to be giving them a wash with Nuln Oil. Then we're going to be highlighting it with Eshin Grey. And then we'll be doing a fine detailed highlight of Dawnstone. So we've got some Aboddon Black on our palette. Just water that down a little bit. Let's get some on our brush. And what we want to do is just paint the boots. I want to paint the gloves. And we're going to paint the sword grip on the back. So for the next step on the black, what we're going to be doing is just giving it a wash of Nuln Oil. So this is just to take the edge off some of that black and just give it a nice matte finish. I'm going to do the boots. So now that the wash has dried over our black areas, what we're going to be doing is just giving them a highlight with Eshin Grey. So we've switched to our fine detail brush and we're just going to go over each of the fingers here. We're going to go over the lining of the boots. So you need a steady hand for this part. So for the last part on our gloves and boots, what we're going to be doing is just giving it a fine detailed highlight of Dawnstone. So what we're looking to do is just pick out the raised areas like the knuckles here and just touch the Dawnstone on the edges there. And on the boots, we just want to touch the very edges of our Eshin Grey highlight. With the boots and the gloves complete, we're going to move on to the plume and the trim around the robes. For this, we're going to be painting them pink. To start, we're going to go along the trim with Screamer Pink, and then we're going to add a very subtle highlight Pink Horror. So grab a fine detail brush. I'm using my Windsor and Newton Series 7 size 2 brush because I want to maintain maximum control and I don't want to get any of the pink on those white robes. So we're going to water down our Screamer Pink just a tad, just so it's got a nice flowing consistency. And then what we're going to do is paint the trim around the robes, being very careful. Now I do strongly recommend taking your time with this step. Try not to rush and don't overload your brush. So we're just looking to get around the trim of the robes. We'll also be painting the ribbons on the back and all of these little tassels on the weapons, like so. So for the last part on the Screamer Pink, what we're going to do is we're going to try and freehand a line across these tabard bits just here. Now what you're looking to do is drag a line that's parallel to the bottom of the robe. So you need a good point on your brush here. You don't want to overload it. I'm going to use a fine detail brush for this part, and what you want to do is just drag a line a couple of millimeters above the bottom of the robes. Now we're just going to mark out a quick line and then we're going to go over it a few times just to get some solid colour in there. So now we've painted all of our parts with Screamer Pink, we're looking to be highlighting them now with Pink Horror. So you want to get your fine detail brush for this. Just want to water down some Pink Horror. Don't want too much on your brush because you want some decent control. And what we're just looking to do is highlight all these areas quite subtly. You don't want to go on too heavy. Otherwise you'll be able to see all the brush strokes. So you want one nice sweep to do this highlight. So what I'm doing here is just getting the edge of my brush and I'm just dragging it along the edge. With the highlights of pink horror over the screamer pink, the trims, ribbons, tassels and the plume are now all complete. So now we're going to focus on the flesh. So we're going to paint the face with contrast Gulliman flesh. We're then going to wash around the eyes and inside the mouth with Nuln Oil. And then we're going to highlight the raised areas with Kislev Flesh. So what you want to do is get some contrast Gulliman flesh onto your brush. See, now I'm using a detail brush here just so I can get some decent control while dropping this all over the face. Just want to paint that over just like that. And don't forget to do around the neck as well. So now the Gulliman flesh is dried, we're just going to apply some Nuln Oil around the eyes. So just get your fine detail brush, just drop that into the recesses around the eyes. And for the last step on the skin, we're going to get some Kislev Flesh on our fine detail brush. Now you want to be very careful here. What we want to do is just apply some Kislev Flesh on the raised areas of the face. So after painting the whites of the eyes and gluing on the shield, all we need to do now is base the model and paint the gems. You can paint the gems any colour you like. I'm going to paint mine purple. We're going to cover how to paint gems in a future episode, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, our Auralan Warden is ready for the battlefield. Here is the finished unit ready to stand side by side in the heat of battle to defend their homeland. Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe for more painting tutorials. Stay safe and see you next time.